Howdy. Welcome back. Why I, and probably we, want to die in debt. This seems counterproductive. How are you doing today, Michael?
I'm doing well, man. No, and you, absolutely a we. I hope to be certainly 7 figures and possibly 8 figures in debt when I kick the bucket. So yeah, definitely a we.
And I have an example towards the end of this video on how the debt will make my heirs millions and not cost them money. But the first reason that I have why I want to die in debt, and this is where I think a video like this can reach the most people and probably cause a lot of hate and discontent, is a lot of people worship. They worship at the altar of being debt-free. Even the people who understand good debt talk about the chronology of investing. We have the growth phase, the stabilization phase, then from Coach Carson, the harvesting phase. That's the first time I heard it, was when he mentioned it. And I'm definitely a Coach Carson fan. But in harvesting, maybe it is you sell a property or two and you pay off the remaining debt and you live debt-free until you pass away, or so that there's no debt for your heirs. But my example that we use towards the end of the video, I show how being in debt is how my heirs will inherit millions instead of hundreds of thousands, and how being out of debt would cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, again, it's people worship at the seat of Dave Ramsey, right? I think Dave Ramsey, to his credit, I'll say this about Dave Ramsey. I've seen him speak once in my life. It was about an hour talk, main stage talk, and it was the best speech I've ever heard. And I've seen thousands of speeches. I was in sales, and every quarter you would get some muckety muck up there. So first off, please understand I'm a huge Dave Ramsey fan. I think Dave Ramsey is a wonderful first step for 99.9% of people, right? If you look at the average American, you all need Dave Ramsey in a big way. Totally agree. The other thing I appreciate about Dave Ramsey is how consistent he is. He's essentially been saying the same thing for 30 years. And I think there's a lot of respect I give him for that. But when you build something from scratch, like both you and I've done, we now live our lives as we so choose. You're spending almost 3 months in Thailand is a great example. There are other ways. And again, I just tell people what I'm doing, right? I've been very clear. Olivia and I are currently taking 2 assets, and these assets currently both have debt. One of them, I'm going to use round numbers instead of specifics. One of them has $30,000 in debt on it. It's worth 300 grand. So what's that? 10%. The other one's got 50,000, technically $48,000 in debt on it, and it's worth 420 grand. I have, plenty of assets like that. But what are we doing? We're going back and taking out 60 to 65% LTV to raise cash. And to your point, raise our debt level. There's no reason to have assets like that so low. But now, in fairness, we're not just going to go splurge these things on fancy toys. We're going to go buy other assets with leveraged debt. And this is how, you can play the game forever. And, there was a video I saw from Rob from Robuilt or Rawbuilt. I always get that wrong. I'm sorry.
I've said it both ways and been corrected both times.
It's like, sorry, buddy. And by the way, let's give him credit. He's coming out to our Vegas event. So again, I look forward to seeing him. Thank you for coming. But he did a video that just blew up. He actually texted me about borrow till you die. And I agree. That is a strategy that a lot of wealthy folks do. And, I think most people probably throw hate at it because of Dave Ramsey or Dave Ramsey-like behavior. But if you have the asset base, it is a wonderful strategy, because at the end of this, when you pass, you're going to get something called stepped up basis, or your heirs will. And more importantly, you don't pay depreciation recapture. You don't pay, capital gains. You don't pay any of these things. So I think it's a wonderful strategy for, a set of individuals for sure.
I didn't want to start the video with this because it could be a little bit insulting, and I want to save that for the people who hang around a while. Okay. The people who have really thin skin have already left the video thinking we're talking about good debt and they don't believe in it. And I'm I'm with you. I'm a Dave Ramsey fan. I think for 90+% of the people, he's not just the first step, he's the only step they need. They're not going to be investors. They're not going to buy assets that cash flow. They're going to work until they're in their 60s or 70s, and they're going to do a 401k and retirement and Social Security and being debt-free. Great plan. But the reason so many people worship at the altar of being debt-free is because they have a very childish notion of how net worth works. And they haven't gotten to the point where they can understand that, yeah, you can owe millions to somebody. Billionaires owe billions to people in most cases. And that's where the wealth comes from. So when I say I have $1.5 million in debt, it's a little bit more than that. People go, oh, doesn't that make you lose sleep at night? I'm like, no, because that is how I got the $7 million in gross value that gives me, after, if I sold everything and walked away, capital gains, depreciation, recapture, the cost of selling to pay agents, and maybe any repairs I had to do to sell everything, I still have a net worth of over 3 million because of the debt. Without the debt, without buying things and without paying them down, I don't know that I'd even own one property yet. Right? I don't know that I would have saved enough to do that.
Yeah, there's so much wisdom in this. And again, this is not something I recommend people do what they start. But again, if you're on this wealth journey, and you guys have heard me say this a lot, it's a 10-year journey. At the end of the 10-year journey, you're going to have options. And again, let's just paint a vision for you. Let's just pretend over the course of 20 years, you bought 10 properties. As Dion has always told us, it's not you bought 10 properties on day one. You bought one property and then held it and then bought a second. And so when you get to that year 20 mark, some of them you've owned for 20, some for 18, some for 16, all of that. And you're going to have the ability to do what Olivia and I are doing and extract, $500,000, $600,000. And, how long can you live on that? And oh, by the way, why is this whole borrow till you die thing work? Because that $500,000 I'm going to get wired to my account is tax-free. Tax-free. So, oh, by the way, what does that mean? It means it's going to spend like $1 million. Think about that. Getting $500K in loans, which, oh, by the way, let's not forget my tenants pay for, right? I don't pay that. My tenants pay that. And I'm going to get it. It's going to feel like $1 million. That's going to be a good day, Dion.
And so I got two more things before I get to the reason why I want to die in debt. The first one is the debt gives me levered appreciation. Correct. And levered depreciation. So I'm not just gaining increased net worth based on what I've invested. I'm gaining increased net worth based on what I've invested and what the bank has invested. And because of the levered depreciation, because of the way the IRS is formed and how Congress is full of people who keep making rules that benefit people who own properties because they own properties. It's so weird how that works. You can push the tax even on the earned income that you're going to get, the passively earned income from real estate, decades down the road with leverage. Something that my brother David learns every year when he goes to file his taxes because he has all paid off properties and he doesn't have any leverage left or any depreciation left. So he pays massive amounts in taxes, but it's on earned income. So it's not like it puts him in debt. Right. It's just frustrating for him to write the 6-figure check every year. So levered appreciation, levered depreciation.
No, again, just thinking about your brother's example, I don't know his stories, but again, just think about this. So you have 10 properties free and clear, and you have no depreciation, no lever in that. Or you go back to that 10 properties and you take out 50%. So you're still hyper secure. And then you go buy another 10. And that's the leverage. Right now you own 20 properties, cash flowing across 10 properties, getting appreciation on 10 properties, getting levered appreciation, to your point, on 10 properties. And this really goes back to one of the things you said earlier about Coach Carson, and I totally agree with it. Right there, I have always talked about a grind, like a build phase and a chill phase, but I think there is that harvesting phase, and part of that harvesting phase can be doing exactly what Olivia and I are doing, and that is going back to assets that you've owned for 10 or 15 years. And taking a big chunk of cash and doing what you want with it. I mean, $500,000. I mean, I don't know what your guys' living expenses are, but if I did nothing else, that's 5 years of living expenses probably. So again, these are all options. This is why the rich do this. And again, back to your point about billionaires, I mean, this would probably piss people off, but it's true. Mark Zuckerberg, one of the top 10 richest people on the planet, got a 30-year mortgage on his properties in Palo Alto or wherever they are, California. Why does he do that? Because of levered return. The guy doesn't want to sell his stock, pay, capital gains when he can just go get a freaking loan. Right? Again, this is absolutely a strategy that some people should think about.
So the last thing before the example, the real life example on why I want to die in debt is, well, it's split into two. First, the bank is a form of asset protection.
Yes.
I have a small portfolio, right? I didn't want a big portfolio. I wanted the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units, right out of Coach Carson's small and mighty investing strategy. But two of them are paid off. One I paid off, which cost me $1 million. And then one I purchased all cash because it was a self-funded burr. Of my 8 properties, they're the only 2 really at risk. Yeah. If I go through a lawsuit and it goes beyond my insurance, beyond my umbrella insurance, and somehow hits equity, they can't take the properties that the banks own a portion of, but they can take the 2 that are owned free and clear. So I don't lose sleep over it because it's a part of the portfolio. I want the sleep well at night account of having the equity, the paid off portion of it. But I also like the sleep well at night of knowing the bank's attorneys are on my side during anything like that.
Yeah, that was a big part of my growth phase is I didn't want any asset at risk from that, because that's always a fear in the beginning that these wild ass lawsuits come, and I've had some doozies. But when you get to the end of the game, you do cherry pick assets, pay a few off, just so you have that sleep at night. I call it the oh shit pile, right? If things go to hell in a handbasket, you're not taking these 15 or 18 or whatever the number is. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's nice to have a bank, a big bank, a big lender in your camp. And it is that protection. So I agree with you.
One question before I give my example. My heirs, if I were to pass away, want absolutely nothing to do with my rentals.
Amen.
They will take they get sold off. I've got an executor of the will. He's got instructions on how to sell everything. He's got all of the information. It'll get sold. They get what's left. Yeah, the government will take a chunk, but they get a stepped up basis. That's better than they would get if they took over in a trust and tried to sell everything and then had to pay capital gains, depreciation, recapture, and the cost of selling. So that takes out you want them to take over a bunch of paid off properties. We picture our kids getting 10 paid off properties and like, oh, they don't have to worry about mortgages. No, they don't want the rentals.
No, my daughter will sell everything very quickly. So
here's my example, a real life example. And it's weird how this worked. So I did a video one time on what happened first, $1 million in net worth or $1 million in debt. And that's how I found out, because I really didn't care about net worth when my net worth hit $1 million. Ironically, it was like within a few months of the exact same time that my brother David's net worth hit $1 million. And so we've talked about real estate because no one else in our family really invests. And so that's our topics when we travel. We've taken month-long trips, a couple of months in Colombia, a couple of months in Thailand, a couple of months in Portugal. We're going to Mallorca later this year, and we're going to spend at least a month there. So David and I travel a lot. We get some deep conversations. When we're sober, sometimes it's about money and rentals. And so we had $1 million net worth at about the same time. Now, the difference is his are paid off properties. He had 10 paid off properties. The gross value had gone over $1 million. And I always calculate net worth if you had to sell, capital gains, depreciation, recapture, and the agent fees, what's left, we would both have over $1 million at that point. But I had $1.5 million in debt at the same time. It was a bit more than that because there've been some pay down since then. But I'm not even going to count that in the equation. So you track forward a few years from when we were talking and I hit the $1 million. It was the beginning of 2020. I bought my fourplex. It put me over $1 million in net worth and over $1 million in debt. And he had no debt, paid off properties. You go forward, because Washington is such an appreciating market, we had about 40% appreciation in the next few years.
Wow.
Like, that didn't suck.
No.
And it wasn't per year. I mean, like that aggregate of several years together was 40%.
Understood.
So a lot of markets went up quite a bit after 2020. So his net worth went up 40%. He went from $1 million in net worth to 1.4. So if he passed away today, his kids get 1.4 million, or the day when I did the math on this.
Right.
But my net worth went up based on the $1 million in equity and the $1.5 million in debt.
Exactly.
So my portfolio in that 40% growth, and there's been more because it's been like a year and a half now since we did this. My net worth went from 1 million to 2 million. So he gained 400,000. I gained $1 million. Every month or year that you own your properties without debt on them, you are costing your heirs a massive amount of appreciation, because they're only gaining appreciation on what you've invested or what you've paid off, instead of what the bank also owes, or you owe the bank on the property. So because of my debt, my kids got $600,000 more than my niece and nephew did.
Yeah, this is just all math. And I know math is not everybody's cup of tea, but you just have to think about what's the biggest base. Because again, that's the beauty of appreciation. Like when you hear real estate went up 5% in a year, people don't really understand what that means, because most of us buy with debt. Like, let's just say, for example, you bought with a VA loan, 0% down. And let's just say, for example, it's a 200K house. So again, you get into this property, you're now the owner, your debt's 200, equity is 0, but it goes up 5%. So you just made 10 grand on that 5%. But guess what? That's an infinite return. You get to keep all of that appreciation because you're the owner. And the debt state, so now the property's worth 210 and the debt's 200. And if you do 5% down, I mean, it's just how math works. So again, as you're in this build phase, the bigger the foundation, which is equity plus debt, you get to keep all of the appreciation. Why did Olivia and I really enjoy 2020 to 2025? Because we have multiple eight figures in our foundation. So if our foundation goes up 40%, that's a freaking big ass number, right? So again, it's the beauty of levered appreciation.
And to wrap it up, that's exactly why I want, when I pass away, I hope I'm in a bunch of debt. And that brings us back to right now, if they've made it this far in the video, there is still somebody out there who has the childish opinion that net worth is tied to how much you owe. That's a factor. You have to pay off the debt, but you can owe millions in debt, but have a positive net worth in multiples of what you owe because of the debt. Now, that doesn't mean credit card debt, car loans, student loans, anything that is consumer debt or debt that costs you more than it makes, but something that makes more than it costs you, somebody else pays off, and preferably cash flows, is what sets us free and what sets our heirs up to inherit more than they would if we focused on paying off debt. But that doesn't mean that's right for everybody. There are some people like my brother David who sleep better because they don't think a bank is making money off of their asset. And I hope the bank makes a bunch of money off my asset.
Me too. Yeah.
As long as I'm getting the yield I want.
Yeah. A couple of things here. First off, I think it was Pace Morby that first told me this. You've got to know thyself. So in your brother's case, he wants to be debt free, and that's how his sleep at night. And it's nobody's business but his, right? Just because you and I think it's crazy, and I think it's really crazy, that doesn't mean anything. That's know thyself. So good for him. And the other thing I'm reminded of is yesterday on the Daily Financial News, I shared 5 strategies smart people use to multiply wealth. Here's number 1 as a reminder: strategic use of leverage to acquire appreciating assets. That is exactly what we talked about today. Strategic use of leverage to acquire appreciating assets. Rule number 1. Dion, you're amazing, man. When you coming back from Thailand, where are you going next?
After we leave here, we're heading to Las Vegas for the One Rental at a Time event on February 15th and 16th at the Center for the Blind in Las Vegas. I will be staying at Trump Tower if anybody wants to hang out. We have the Midnight Denny's meetups on Wednesday and Thursday, the week before the event. I'm there from Tuesday to the following week. I look forward to seeing everybody there. Hopefully we'll do some man on the streets videos again. I like to do that when we're in Vegas. And at the event, I will have a room somewhere in the building. Chesala will probably be tracking people down for me, but I'd like to do short videos, portfolio review, so people can compare your 1 to 2 to 3 on what's happening with their portfolios and record them for your content.
Awesome. I appreciate you, man. Look forward to it. Take care. Have a great day.
Ciao.